Los Angeles, 1977. In a cramped apartment above Olympic Boulevard, a refugee boy refused to sleep. For weeks, his parents told doctors about the whispering nightmares that left him gasping awake. One night, the boy's father found him dead. No wound, no sound, just a scream frozen behind closed eyes. Police called it natural causes. Everyone else called it bad luck. He wasn't the last. Dozens of young men from Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam died the same way, at night, in their sleep, all dreaming of something chasing them. At first, it seemed like superstition from a distant war. But the reports kept coming, and the coroner's notes began using the same phrase: no clear cause. Years later, a young filmmaker saw those same clippings. Hollywood would soften it into fantasy, a boogeyman with a burned face, but the morgue photos remain filed under the truth: sudden, unexplained death. The first death appeared small in the city newspapers. Refugee youth found dead during sleep, no name listed. Later reports identified him as Lao Ung, age 19, part of a Hmong family who had escaped the war 2 years prior. His father, a machinist at a garment factory, told police that Lao had been terrified to fall asleep for weeks. He spoke of men chasing him in dreams. The coroner's report showed no toxin, no trauma. On record, Los Angeles County Coroner Case 7-142. Doctor's notes mention possible cardiac arrhythmia, unexplained. A local reporter from the Los Angeles Times, Ralph Tucker, requested comment from the Refugee Health Office. The official reply read, "We believe stress and diet in relocation may cause these episodes." Behind the family's altar, investigators noted the charred residue of incense, a wooden carving of a warrior spirit, and a cup half filled with salt water, a Hmong tradition for warding off spirits of the dead. The cause was listed as natural, but the pattern had just begun. Within a year, similar deaths appeared in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois, all among Southeast Asian men ages 18-35. Medical examiner Dr. Gary Gilliland of the University of Minnesota recorded 3 cases in December 1979, calling the syndrome bangungot, a Filipino term meaning to rise and moan in sleep. Doctors began comparing notes quietly. In January 1981, the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, convened a small meeting titled Sudden Nocturnal Death in Southeast Asian Males. Minutes from that meeting, archived 1981-11, describe a haunting commonality. Victims had shown no symptoms prior to death. They were often described by relatives as having frightening dreams shortly before demise. Local Hmong families began avoiding hospitals altogether, turning instead to shamanic ritual. One Fresno elder told a Fresno Bee reporter, "The spirits from the old country are angry. They can find us even here." Official briefings remained cautious, but whispers grew that the refugees believed their ancestors' spirits were following them into sleep. Ethnographers later connected the victims' background. Many were Hmong men drafted by the CIA during the Vietnam War's secret army. When the U.S. withdrew, thousands fled to refugee camps in Thailand before resettlement. The trauma of helicopter escapes, deforestation, and persecution was severe. Letters from camps in Nong Khai describe nightly screams. Men wake shouting that they have fought all night. They are tired, even while asleep. By 1982, a preliminary CDC report linked these deaths to extreme stress disorders, perhaps nightmares triggering lethal heart arrhythmias. Still, no medical correlation was found. Journalists coined the chilling term Asian death syndrome. A Los Angeles Herald-Examiner article, May 1982, quoted Dr. Larry Neild. "They die in their sleep without reason. That alone is reason enough to be afraid." Families burned paper houses to calm the restless dead. But something, memory, guilt, or spirit, refused to release its hold. At the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, Dr. Bruce Hensel began compiling data in early 1983, 7 deaths fitting the same profile. Autopsies revealed healthy young hearts, no drugs, no poison. One husband of a victim, Somphong Thao, told investigators, "She was breathing. Then she gasped like she was still running." The fridge in their apartment still hummed under yellow light when police arrived. No forced entry, no marks of violence. A note in Dr. Hensel's file reads, "Culturally linked anxiety, possibly night terror leading to ventricular fibrillation." Quietly, he added, "This one haunts me." Meanwhile, refugee community centers warned of dabbed sog, a malevolent spirit said to suffocate sleepers. Locals refused to speak its name aloud. Fear spread quietly among families who once fled from bullets, only to face an enemy no one could see. Between 1981 and 1984, journalists interviewed surviving relatives describing patterns of warning: flickering lights before sleep, sudden paralysis, unable to scream though awake, a weight like someone sitting on the chest. Molly Thao, a social worker in Chino, kept 12 recorded testimonies, now archived at the UCLA Center for Southeast Asian Studies. In one, a woman recounts her uncle's final words: "He said something was coming for him if he slept again." These interviews show horror, not of haunting but of remembrance. Men who had fought for a country now ignoring them. Police reports stopped mentioning dreams, only sudden collapse. But survivors told priests of seeing shadow men over their family beds. Catholic archives in Stockton record at least 2 exorcisms performed on refugee homes between 1982 and 1985. The tape cassettes of interviews remain in archive boxes labeled simply "Night Visitors 1983." By 1983, community doctors adopted the shorthand SUNS, Sudden Unexplained Nocturnal Death Syndrome, a new term for an old curse. Dr. Kekoa Young, Honolulu medical examiner, published one of the first comprehensive studies reporting 82 deaths among otherwise healthy Southeast Asian men since 1977. His notes: "The nightmares seem integral. We must not dismiss their fears simply as folklore." When medical language replaced spiritual names, newspapers grew bolder. A small San Francisco Chronicle headline read, "Men die and sleep as they dream, doctors baffled." Yet every story still ended the same: a closed casket and a mother holding a photograph. The scientific world offered statistics. The community heard warning. Records from St. Mary's Hospital in Milwaukee show 3 sons' deaths in autumn 1983. A nurse noted in her logs, "Family members refuse to leave lights off. They take shifts staying awake." In 1981, filmmaker Wes Craven clipped one article from the Los Angeles Times. It described a Southeast Asian refugee boy who refused to sleep, claiming something was waiting in his dreams. The story ended with his death in bed. Tranquil face, untouched body, a half-full cup of coffee beside him. Craven later said in interviews, "It was the most haunting story I ever read. These people who'd survived war being chased down by their dreams. There was something metaphoric and brutally real about it." He started collecting similar pieces, pinning them to a corkboard, the working title, "Nightmare on Elm Street." Early drafts showed no killer, only dreams killing dreamers. Studio executives pressed for a face, a backstory. Thus, Freddy Krueger was born, a symbol of inescapable guilt reshaped into cinematic fantasy. The original newspaper clippings remained in Craven's files until 2005. When A Nightmare on Elm Street premiered in 1984, refugee networks recognized the echoes immediately. Though Hollywood praised it as imaginative horror, Hmong and Lao families saw it as a mockery of their trauma. Letters archived in Paramount Fan Relations, June 1984, include one signed by A.H. St. Paul. "You took our sons' deaths and gave them a monster's name." Studio records show no official reply, but internally, a memo from producer Robert Shea advised future press to emphasize pure fiction, no real case inspiration. Yet, testimonies continued. Several viewers reported fainting during screenings. A theater projectionist in Minnesota wrote a complaint. "Crowds scream before lights even dim. Some wear talismans." Belief had returned through the screen. Superstition translated into global myth. The film earned $25 million domestically. The CDC reported 18 more sons' deaths that same year. By '97, after 3 sequels, journalists began tracing the film's alleged true story. Nick Sco's piece for LA Weekly revisited the refugee deaths and interviewed surviving doctors. Dr. Gary Gilliland admitted, "We still don't know why it stopped. When the community broke apart, the deaths just seemed to end." The last reported SUNS case in the U.S. occurred in 1989. Academic journals like the Western Journal of Medicine, 1990, listed SUNS as a culturally specific cardiac event possibly triggered by REM-related stress, yet emphasized its connection to reported night terrors. On camera, Wes Craven said quietly in 1997, "Sometimes truth knocks on your door in the shape of a myth. Hollywood's killer wore a hat and claws. The real demon never needed either." The medical files were archived. The films continued, each further from their origin. Studio archives showed dozens of alternate concepts. Freddy as a spirit of revenge, a child killer burned by townsfolk, a dream demon craving fear. None of this existed in the real reports. Screenwriter David Chaskin later admitted, "We needed a face audiences could fight. Real nightmares are too formless." Psychologists reviewing the franchise note its unintentional echo of refugee guilt, children paying for sins of adults. The irony persisted. An icon of pop horror was born from anonymous medical files. The studio trademarked Freddy's name in 1984. The CDC quietly retired the term Asian death syndrome in 1989. Two kinds of control, legal and linguistic, sealed the case into entertainment. A studio merchandise catalog from 1988 lists over 200 licensed Freddy products. Meanwhile, coroner records from the original cases were sealed under medical privacy laws. In 2007, the Museum of Death in Hollywood acquired a small display, a box labeled SUNS Report, Los Angeles County, 1977-84. Inside, photocopied coroner notes, foreign language talismans, a rusted coffee mug. Visitors report unease. Staff claim the humidity sensors near the case malfunction constantly. A curator explained to a visiting documentarian, "It's one of those exhibits that hums, like the electricity changes around it." A laminated letter sits at the bottom of the case. "For my son, please let him rest." No one is certain which family left it there. The museum guest book shows repeated entries about cold spots near the display. 3 visitors in 2009 claimed their digital photos of the case showed only blur. The museum director dismissed it as standard condensation issues affecting camera lenses. Today, sleep researchers still track cases of SUNS in Laos and the Philippines. In 2017, The Lancet revisited the syndrome, calling it Brugada-related arrhythmia triggered by stress, but cultural memory lingers. At the same Museum of Death display, staff keep a visitor log. Half the names end with comments like, "couldn't breathe for a second," or "felt something watching." Security cameras show tiny anomalies, a flicker, a brief static line. Usual technical faults, except they only happen during that tour. Younger visitors often recognize the name Freddy Krueger before reading the label. That's how myths survive. They enter through entertainment and exit through belief. The building's janitor reportedly mutters before turning off that hall's lights, "Don't say his name while the case is open." No one laughs. In the private viewing room of the museum, a single sheet remains, unarchived. A 1977 police photo, a small bedroom, sunlight cutting past blinds, a cold cup of black coffee on a desk. The case number matches the first report, 77-9-142. The narrator closes the folder. Somewhere outside, a siren fades through Los Angeles night. He writes the final notation in the research log. When we turn fear into fiction, we preserve it, not kill it. Before leaving, he looks once at the glass case, then at his camera. He hesitates, doesn't photograph. The record ends with a line of quiet tape hiss. Visitors advise against staring too long into that display, because in every retelling, something still remembers the original dreamers.